It would be like
so cool.
PS Poets Corner.
PS Poets Corner, yeah. Okay, how about let's just get
We
this
have
first
some
one
tea-
in.
we have some tea.
Okay, this is a lot of high production value I had to put together for you here.
All right. This is good.
Okay.
With the lights, with the Christmas lights.
Right.
With even the fireplace, we put a little fire going.
Next time I'll set it up.
Maron, look at that. Would be so nice.
Okay, here we go. Ready?
All right,
starting recording here. Okay, thank you all so much for joining us again. PS Poets Podcast. Here with my co-founder Sergio and Chase.
Hello.
And we're actually doing something a little bit different now. We're gonna film this podcast. We're launching our brand new YouTube channel. Well, not brand new. We've had it for a while, but we haven't really populated any content on it. But we're really prioritizing that now this year, especially since COVID-19 has kind of kept everybody indoors. I think it'd be a great way to just create more content, engage with all of our followers, especially on Instagram. Make sure you check us out there at PS Poets. And so, yeah, we're coming back with a podcast episode. I don't think the last one we had was in August of last year. So
Last year?
It's been like 9 months since our last
You know what? You're right about that.
episode.
Because of that's
yeah.
right.
So we apologize. We're coming back strong. We've been busy. That's right. We've been putting together more books. Actually, we did launch Sergio's full-length book of plays not too long ago. I think that was last summer.
Yeah, last summer, right before. Yeah.
So we got that out, and we're actually working on our Earth ebook, which is going to be done hopefully within the next couple of weeks. I've been working on that furiously, reading through a lot of the submissions. Some really great work from everybody. So thank you so much for submitting. And tonight's episode, there's a lot of stuff happening in the country that's been really tough, just on our communities and everybody in the world, really, with racial injustice and the Black Lives Matter movement. So I think that's important. We're going to talk about that. But along with that, Sergio wrote a really excellent blog post about a trip that he took in Germany, or East Berlin. He was right on the borderline there with the Berlin Wall. And we kind of, there's a lot of similarities about your trip that you kind of dealt with. And I think the insight that you had with your blog post, everybody can check that out, by the way. You go to pspoets.com under our blog category, content. You can check that out. But so I'd love to just kind of talk to you about that, pick your brain about
that. No, I just, it was the first time I'd really kind of written a blog or I guess I don't know if you'd call it an editorial or an article.
Yeah.
But blog post. Yeah. So, it was the first time that I'd written one, and I just wanted to think, okay, well, what am I going to kind of write about? It's a tumultuous time in our society right now. And I just wanted to write something that I didn't want to overthink things. I just wanted to write something from my heart, something that I related to. And I just thought, well, I just wrote it. And I just thought when I was done writing it, that, part of it I think is relevant to what is going on in America today, because it's just really about injustice.
Yeah.
And power struggle and inequality and people's rights being violated. And so I just wrote this article. It's called An American Teenager in East Berlin in 1989. So basically it kind of just starts off where I'm basically I was a delinquent, and my mother
changed.
My mother, that's right, nothing's changed. My poor mother I was raised by a single mother, and
Leah.
she just had such a difficult time with me. And so she sent me to military school. It was my freshman year of high school. And, I wasn't really faring too well at military school. I wasn't really excelling, really wasn't doing too well. Wasn't really in a very good place in my life. I was going through a lot of, just a lot of adolescent angst and anger and things like that. And so, while I was in military school, when spring break came around, my mother didn't want me home.
Rightfully so.
And so she decided she thought it would be, nice to send me on a trip to Europe. So I went on this trip to Europe. It was me and a few other guys from school. that we're not going home on spring break. We went on this trip and we went all over Europe, but one of the places we ended up was Berlin, West Berlin. And this was April of 89. And this was about 7 months before the wall came down.
Yeah.
And, I was a really uneducated teenager.
Self-absorbed, I think, is the word you used in your article too, which was kind of, I think that's a pretty fair, analysis of a lot of kids, in the country,
I had my own thing going on, my own struggles, but yes, I was, I self-absorbed in the sense that I had no clue.
You were just worried about your life, things that are kind of going on with what you were dealing with,
basically.
Not the whole world collectively.
That's right. I was not aware of communism. I didn't know. I really didn't even know our economics, our system of government.
Yeah.
I didn't know civics. I didn't know about our government or how our government functioned or how it ran, or I couldn't even, at that age, if you asked me how many branches of government we had, I probably couldn't even tell you. I couldn't even name one. So that's how out of touch I was. So I'm in West Berlin and we're having a good time. And me and these other guys from military school, we met some college students from the University of Miami. We're hanging out with them, partying with them, having a good time. And they told us that they're going to into East Berlin the next day. They had a bus tour.
Yeah.
They asked us if we'd like to go. And we said, yeah, sure. Let's go to the East Berlin.
Yeah, screw it. Let's go. I'm down.
I had no clue.
Let's get on the bus. Let's go.
No clue whatsoever. So we met them the next day. We get on the bus and we get to Checkpoint Charlie. And that was really the only thing I was familiar with about the Cold War was really Checkpoint Charlie. Because
Checkpoint Charlie is that kind of the way station between the two, right?
It's the crossing point. It was the crossing point at the Berlin Wall, where the crossing point between West Berlin and East Berlin. So West Berlin, after World War II, some of Europe was divided up. West Berlin went to the Allies, America and England. We allowed them freedom to have their own government. They had their own democratic government. They elected their own officials. We stayed out of their but unfortunately in East Berlin, it was a different story. The Russians got East Berlin. Their system of government, their economic system and system of government was capitalism at the time. So they ended up with East Berlin. Now they did not allow East Berlin to have their own independent, free, democratic elections like we had here in the West, or even how West Germany had it.
Yeah.
So I get to Checkpoint Charlie, and that was the first time you're looking at this wall. You're right in front of the Berlin Wall. You're about to go through it, and it really hit me how vast, just how big, and just how complex this wall really was. And I remember all the guard towers there. And it really hit me. Like, how strange is it that there's these guard towers that have to keep their citizens in their country,
trapped in there?
So the wall was basically built in 1961 by East German authorities. The reason that they had it was first barbed wire. I believe they put barbed wire there. And then the wall was built very shortly after. But the reason that they did that was because there was just this influx, this migration of East German citizens moving freely into West Germany. And what was happening is a lot of very prominent intellectual professionals from East Germany were leaving.
Hightailing it out of
there.
They
were hightailing it out of there. And what was happening, it was taking a toll on the East German economy. And so obviously they couldn't have that. And so
let's trap them in.
That's exactly what they did.
Right.
And the West Germans found all kinds, I'm sorry, I apologize. The East Germans found all kinds of elaborate ways of getting across to West Germany. They would dig tunnels. They're literally air balloons. I'm telling you.
That's crazy.
And why were people so desperate to make that cross?
Yeah, I mean, they probably just knew that it's a whole economic, personal lifestyle freedom, as soon as you can get over.
Also just the freedom from totalitarianism.
Right. Well, you had a good quote here. You said, "For the very first time in my life, I became socially conscious of the world around me. The East German government, which was a puppet regime for the USSR, made it clear that they had complete and total control over civilian population. What was also blatantly apparent was that the East German authorities accomplished this type of collective obedience through intimidation and fear."
That's right.
So, and I thought that was really a powerful explanation, really, because, gosh, I mean, you have to kind of see the similarities of what we're going through.
They'll fucking shoot you.
Well, right.
They would kill you.
Right.
I mean, if anyone tried to, so just even going through Checkpoint Charlie and into East Berlin, just to see that was life-changing for me. And then when I actually got into East Berlin, I had just never.
Well, they didn't let you off the bus either.
They did not let us off the bus.
And you kind of said here in your post that it was sort of like a facade that they had set up. Maybe they told their citizens to stay inside to kind of make it seem like a really eerie sort of
they definitely
60-minute period.
They definitely did. They had the whole thing orchestrated. They had it organized if you look at if you go on YouTube and you look at footage of people in North Korea, everything is a show.
Right.
Everything is a show to show the world, to give the appearance that, hey, everything is great here, nothing to see here, everyone's happy here.
Yeah.
And that is not what is really going on underneath the surface.
Right.
So just the fact that when I got into East Berlin and we were traveling through, that we saw nobody on the street, that you had an entire city empty. And the only people we saw were soldiers with machine guns and guard dogs. And that's it. And we could not even see. What was amazing to me was that we couldn't even see inside any of the buildings, because not only were the windows of the buildings shut, but also the shutters closed.
Yeah.
So you could not even see inside. So that's the kind of secrecy that was being that these a totalitarian regime, a government like that wants control, full control. Those are the kind of things that they do.
Yeah.
That's the kind of thing that they will do. And they will use whatever means necessary. That includes violence against people's families, gulags, camps, re-education camps, these type of Gestapo methods, tactics that create fear, that the citizens, this is not people just going along with the system.
Right.
These are people who are basically not given a choice.
Yeah,
that's
right. Right. Well, let me ask you this. So then you have this other statement here that you made, and this is so we can kind of move through your blog post here. You wrote, "That experience sparked an interest in me. From that day, I have always had a strong desire to understand conflict and the mechanisms that can cause a society to implode. I wanted to know why a place like East Germany and the Berlin Wall could even exist in the first place, and why its citizens would agree to be subjected to the demands of their government." So from that statement, what are some similarities you can kind of pull into our own country and just a lot of things that we're dealing with right now in America?
Well, people conflict, the word conflict.
Yeah.
It could have different interpretations. Right. Certainly if you look at what's happening right now in our society with the whole situation with George Floyd, that's a conflict beyond conflict.
Yeah.
That is a catastrophe that has to be addressed, that the whole system has to be looked at.
Yeah.
But when sometimes conflict in different aspects, not in that regard, can sometimes be looked at as a positive thing.
It's
and
true.
a lot of people have a lot of reservation about conflict. And a lot of people, I feel like they have a lot of anxiety about conflict.
I can understand. Probably because it forces you to analyze, what's going on, especially with your own life choices you've made, what's happening, and you have to kind of address those things, right? And
a lot of times, too, people have to advocate for themselves.
That's
and they
true.
don't know how to necessarily do that.
Right.
And that could bring up a lot of issues for people, But I just feel that, conflict can sometimes be a positive thing. And I look at conflict differently. Conflict doesn't make me anxious. It doesn't make me nervous. There's a reason why people are passive aggressive.
Right.
There's a reason for that. There's a reason why people do the things that they do to not confront the situation.
Yeah.
Whatever that situation is. It could be an argument between neighbors, or it could be something even bigger. But without dialogue, without communication, conflict could be a weird thing. But with dialogue, with communication, conflict could be addressed.
So with the protests and stuff going on now, do you think it's? Widespread, nationwide protests happening all over the country, even around the world. The momentum from the Black Lives Matter movement, and do you think that has sparked that kind of conflict in a positive way to some respect?
I do. We all know that in the beginning of the protests, there were people who did not have George Floyd's his memory in mind.
Right.
They were taking advantage of this tragedy.
Right.
But what has surfaced out of that, and the longevity of the protest, what's kind of come along from that, is really a beautiful movement. It's coming from a real place. If anybody looks at the speech that George Floyd's brother made, I think not that long, just a few days ago. I believe it was at Congress.
Yeah, because he testified.
That basically kind of, really goes to the heart of the matter, and the pain that a lot of people are feeling.
Right.
And this type of conflict, you look at the conflict, listen, I'm not saying anything here that is not already known.
Right.
This conflict goes back 400 years. This conflict goes back a long time to an injustice that we still see now today in 2020, in the 21st century. That sin of slavery is reverberating today.
Right.
And just all those beliefs, all those just centuries of beliefs, all that animosity, all that hatred, all that bigotry is still around today. But what is beautiful, and what I find beautiful, so you could dissect the conflict from there, because when you dissect conflict, you got to go to the beginning.
Sure.
You got to go to the history.
Right.
Okay. So we can go all the way back to Columbus, from all the way back to that initial contact. But even if you look at this conflict from post Civil War and the reconstruction of the country after the war, slaves became free, but they weren't really free.
Well, no, the systemic oppression.
That's right. So, and we're seeing that today, like you just mentioned,
Right.
That institutional discrimination, that systemic racism is still around today. And we see it now in the justice system. And, sometimes we don't know what to do. Even we look around and how can we help? Okay, I go to protest and we're protesting.
Right.
But maybe even, I don't know, sharing my own experience
I
as a
think so.
15-year-old in East
Right.
Berlin and letting people know that, listen, totalitarianism and oppression is real. We all know this. And unless we stand up collectively, everybody together, and we come together as a country and we fight for change, hopefully that change will come. Change comes slow, but what I've seen through this movement and through this conflict is a beautiful, peaceful protest of all kinds of people.
Right.
From all around the world.
That's right.
Not just America. All different kinds of people. And it warms my heart. It really
Right.
to see it, especially around the world when you look at other countries. And I hope that movement just keeps going.
Happening. Yeah.
I hope it becomes sustained, and I hope that it doesn't stop until change happens,
Right.
especially in the criminal justice system. Policing. Let me say something quickly.
Sure.
Policing, being a police officer, is one of the most difficult jobs in this country.
Yeah.
I'm not going to argue that. I know police officers. I have family that are police officers. There's no doubt. No family member of a police officer wants to see their family member harmed. Everybody wants to see their family member come home safe. And that's a hard job out there, and that could be a dangerous job.
Right.
But first of all, the police force has to stop just accepting anybody.
That's true.
They got to stop just accepting anybody.
Yeah.
You
need an education.
You need an
education. I think if you're going to be a police officer,
if you're going to carry a gun,
you need proper
to be trained,
emotional, mental capacities to navigate situations, diffuse anger in situations with people in a healthy way. You can't lose your temper like
I'm a social worker.
Do. That's right.
I'm a social worker. For me to make a living in my profession, I had to get a master's degree.
Right.
It would be difficult to make a living without a master's degree. So first of all, police officers need to be educated. They need to go to college and have an education.
Right.
If you're going to carry a gun and you're going to go into heated situations, you need to be trained properly. Second, we need to figure out a way where it's this, listen, like I said, we want police officers coming home safe. But this deadly force, this jump to deadly force, it's got to be reexamined. Because it's not working, and it's not working for a large segment of our population.
That's right.
So,
well, I want to say too, we haven't really released an official statement on behalf of PS Poets, but we as an organization, as a business, as a community online, especially for poetry and for the arts, we support everything that's happening in the country. This Black Lives Matter movement, hopefully it continues to just keep gaining momentum. Like Sergio said, instilling positive change throughout the world, making a huge impact, a sustained impact that, really leads to positive things. And I think for a lot of people, maybe listening or watching right now, you might feel like, how can I get involved? And I understand maybe going to a protest maybe you have anxiety about that. Maybe that's a difficult thing for you to kind of get involved with, or, if you're having a hard time finding ways to get involved with the conversation and share your thoughts and your opinions. And as artists, both of us, and, with our organization and what we do, I really feel that poetry, that writing, is a huge source that you can use to express yourself, to get involved with the movement. Find ways to connect with other people, other artists or writers or whoever, online or on Instagram, have those conversations and feel free to express your thoughts and your beliefs in a way that helps, build that momentum and builds that strength. And I just think poetry is a really great medium. You're writing, like, this is a great example. Your blog post, I think, is a tremendous example of, a situation that you dealt with in your life that you can relate to kind of what's happening now. It gives you a cathartic way to express yourself, to kind of make sense of your thoughts in that process and kind of how those things coexist and they relate to each other. And I think anybody can use the same principle to express yourself and to, build your awareness and to then, spread that love and peace and understanding throughout the world to make a difference, right? I mean, wouldn't you kind of think that, what are your thoughts on that?
I agree with you.
You agree? Okay. Well, that's good. That's good.
I was going to make no. I think what you said is very, relevant. I wasn't listening to any of it, but
he zoned out. Jesus.
No,
PS Poets is a huge community. We have a lot of followers on Instagram. We just have a lot of dedicated people who look at our content. And we have a responsibility as a business, as a platform, to do our part to inspire people, with meaningful messages, with messages that promote change, that promote, equality, for this movement, for all people really in general too. I mean, we're and I believe that this movement is a great foundation to start building that world that we want, for ourselves, right? To rebuild the country in a way that's positive and that, just brings prosperity and fairness and justice to everyone.
You mentioned something though that is actually very relevant, which is with PS Poets and being artists and writing, and art in general is a very cathartic way to express feelings in sometimes very troubling, dark times, whether that be personally, individually, or socially. And there was a girl actually in Connecticut. I was watching a news article because I have family, and I have some a cousin who's a police officer there, and I was watching some protests there, and there was a reporter. They gave some time to a girl who was not a writer, not a poet, but she wrote a poem.
Wow!
And we've seen this through the work that we've done in the community,
right?
But how art can be very healing.
That's right.
And so I do think what you said is actually very, poignant and very relevant, that we're hoping that just maybe a platform, or, PS Poets and just having creativity and an art, a place to people can express their art.
Sure. And you can do that with an unbiased sort of eye. I mean, obviously we want to support things that promote love and peace and understanding. So that's kind of, where our focus is. And I would hope that anyone listening and watching is, on that same page along with us. But yeah, I mean, that's what we're here for. We've always been an advocate for the arts, to help other people feel that they're accepted, that they're not alone. And, that's a tradition and a belief that we want to carry on throughout this movement and use it as a way to help, launch this entire movement forward and, kind of keep building that momentum. So I think it's really important for us to state that and kind of get that out there. But anyway, we're getting down to sort of the end of our episode here. But again, you can check out Sergio's blog post, PSPOETS.com. It's a really great read. He's a fantastic writer. It's almost reads like a short story rather than kind of like a blog post or anything like that. So I think if you're kind of interested in learning more about that history, it'd be a really great resource to check out.
Thanks.
Yeah, man, you did a really great job.
I hope people check it out.
For sure. And make sure to follow us on Instagram at PS Poets. We have a lot of great content coming at you guys. Our Earth ebook's going to come out soon. Our YouTube channel, it's just on YouTube, PS Poets. Check us out. We're going to start populating it with more videos. We're going to have a really cool contest coming up that we're excited about. We're going to be filming maybe someone's poem, like as a music video. Yeah, that's going to be really cool. So we'll have more information coming out about that soon.
We're going to have another podcast next week.
We're going to do this as a weekly thing. So, tune in. We're going to keep everybody up to date. And until then, thank you so much for listening, for watching, and just make sure you go out and write, get involved with your community. BlackLivesMatter.com. You can find protests in your area, resources in your area to kind of learn more about what's happening, get involved, make a difference. And just thank you so much for participating. So
be kind to each other.
That's right. All right, everybody. Take care. Have a good night. Thank you.